Hello, and thank you for tuning in to the FI Mastery Podcast, where our focus is on providing tools, resources, and insights that empower driven individuals to secure their own path to financial independence. My name is Peter Donisanu, and today we're going to talk about how to effectively handle risk. Now, risk is one of those topics that's difficult to talk about because the meaning of risk, more often than not, is in the eye of the beholder. And some people want to run away when they hear the word risk, while others think of it as the potential for opportunities. And so, for the purposes of today's discussion, we're talking about risk in the context of the potential for loss of capital. And so, from this perspective, in today's discussion, we'll cover when you might want to avoid certain risks, how to prevent risks from occurring in the first place, and how to mitigate unavoidable risks so you can confidently venture into the unknown and sleep well, knowing that you're doing what's necessary to create and preserve your wealth. So with that, let's dive into today's podcast. What comes to your mind when you think of the word risk? Maybe when you hear the word risk, you think of the word danger or the potential for an undesired outcome to your health, your wealth, or your time. Or maybe when you hear the word risk, you think of all the possibilities associated with the potential outsized financial gains as you put some of your money on the line for a solid investment. Either way, whether you see it as a danger to keep away from at all costs or as an opportunity to make money, moving through risk carefully can open up a world of opportunities for you when approached thoughtfully. Indeed, risk is like a powerful and unpredictable ocean wave faced head-on by a skilled surfer. And just like that surfer, when you skillfully navigate it, harness its energy, and ride it skillfully, you can experience an exhilarating surge that propels your life forward, allowing you to reach new heights that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to experience. Even so, if you underestimate its strength or fail to maintain your balance on life's surfboard, then that same wave can quickly overpower you and pull you underwater and humble you in an instant. Indeed, just like riding the waves of your own lives, sometimes you need to know which risks to take and which ones to avoid, how to prevent unnecessary losses when you do take those risks, and be prepared for when life throws you an unexpected curveball. That's why when it comes to achieving and maintaining financial independence, being able to master the way you prepare for risks is key to sustaining the wealth you build along the journey. All right, so with all that said, how can you go about approaching risk in a way that allows you to get ahead of significant financial derailers? Well, one of the first ways is to know which risks to avoid in the first place. And how do you do this? Well, imagine yourself standing before a steep cliff. In this situation, risk avoidance is like choosing not to approach the cliff at all and instead sidestepping the potential danger that comes with approaching that cliff. Here, what you're doing is making a conscious decision to avoid the situation entirely, thereby completely eliminating the risk from your reality. Now, it's crucial to note here that this method completely removes the possibility of a risk event occurring, but at the same time, it eliminates the potential benefits that may come with it. For example, picture yourself facing a host of investment opportunities as you get ready to put your money to work. Now, the potential for profit is vast, but so is the risk, right? And so, does that mean from a risk perspective that you stay out of the markets to avoid risk altogether? Well, not necessarily. Instead, when you know which risks to avoid, you might choose to stay away from certain investment vehicles known for their high volatility or their uncertainty, like speculative stocks or cryptocurrencies, even if the potential returns are substantial. That's because the goal here is to shield your hard-earned money from potential losses and thereby opting for stability and security rather than unpredictable high gains. In a similar way, you can think of risk avoidance as an approach to thoughtfully using debt. For example, as a tech professional or a business owner, you may be tempted to leverage debt as a way to accelerate your wealth building journey. And this could come from using margin to boost your investment holdings or borrowing against your home. But now in this situation, while the potential for a massive gain in the markets is based on a speculative bet, in many situations, excessive leverage is fraught with risks, which could open you up to increased financial strain and the potential for bankruptcy. That's because all it takes is one big market move in the wrong direction, and that's it. A margin call puts you out of business. That's why when you practice risk avoidance, what you're doing is opting to maintain a prudent borrowing level with your investments, which ensures that even in the worst case scenario, such as a market or economic downturn, you can stay in the game without crippling your financial future. And for you business owners out there, you're likely to face numerous risks that can lead to operational setbacks in the best situations and potential lawsuits in the worst. So then in this situation, practicing risk avoidance means choosing not to engage in potentially risky ventures or taking on clients that could jeopardize your business future. And what specifically are we talking about here? Well, a crucial part of effectively managing your business is knowing when to accept a client and when to walk away from what could be a bad relationship. Now, in these situations, you'll have to accept that not all clients are beneficial to your business, and in fact, some some may pose considerable risks. For example, consider a scenario where a potential client consistently has trouble paying their bills on time. In this situation, you may be tempted to accept the job considering the potential for increased revenue down the road, but the reality is that this relationship could lead to cash flow issues for your business when their payments are delayed or even worse, never arrive. Therefore, by having a process to identify such problematic clients in the first place and choosing not to work with them, what you're doing is proactively avoiding unnecessary financial risks. Either way, risk avoidance isn't about dodging all financial decisions that carry any amount of risk. Instead, what you're doing is making informed choices that limit your exposure to unnecessary, potentially catastrophic decisions. To be sure, as a high earner, risk avoidance is a fundamental principle that you should be familiar with as a way to ensure that your financial health remains strong, regardless of what may come in uncertain market, economic, or business conditions. All right, so now that we've discussed how risk avoidance can help you sidestep unnecessary problems, let's talk about risk prevention. And so how is risk prevention different from risk avoidance? Well, as you'll recall, risk avoidance is like seeing a cliff and choosing not to approach, right? Well, risk prevention is the process of putting barriers around the cliff, which allows you to approach without getting too close to the edge. Here again, you're not avoiding the cliff entirely. Instead, you're implementing measures to stop the risk from taking place in the first place. And what specifically are we talking about here? Well, when thinking about your investments, risk prevention means more than just wisely choosing where to put your money or which sectors of the markets to avoid. Indeed, risk prevention also involves frequently reviewing and adjusting your portfolio based on market trends and your personal financial goals. For example, if you've experienced a period of strong market gains and anticipate a significant market downturn in the future, then you may want to rebalance your portfolio by reducing holdings where you're over-allocated or adding to positions where you're under-allocated relative to your strategic asset allocation decisions. And why is this important? Well, by rebalancing your portfolio, what you're doing is preventing potential losses from being overly exposed before a potential market downturn takes place. Now, another way to think about preventing risks is being proactive with your debt management. More specifically, when it comes to borrowing money, risk prevention is about being proactive about the way you manage your debt by putting measures in place to address the unexpected. So here, where we're talking about investments, if you're using margin to boost your overall investment return, this might mean having an understanding of a historic volatility of the asset that you're borrowing against, exploring worst case volatility scenarios, and knowing how to size your positions before you start putting your money to work. And in the context of running a business, risk prevention might mean putting in place protocols to prevent financial risks before they turn into real problems. And what do we mean here? Well, you'll likely recall in our earlier example how we discussed the benefits of avoiding risky clients altogether. Now, if you do decide to work with clients who might be a little risky, it's important to establish clear contractual agreements that spell out the expectations and responsibilities of both parties. For example, let's say that you're dealing with a client with a history of delayed payments. So then one way to mitigate this risk is to include strict payment terms in your contracts, like requiring a substantial deposit up front from risky clients or implementing a policy to charge additional fees when your payments are late. Now, these sort of provisions, while not always perfect, may help to incentivize prompt payment and protect your business from significant cash flow issues down the road. Either way, risk prevention is about setting up guardrails or putting processes in place that allow you to take certain risks without getting burned. All right, so now that we've talked about avoiding and preventing risks, what do you do in those situations where the potential for a loss is going to come your way no matter how much you try to avoid or prevent it? Well, that's where risk mitigation comes into play. And what is risk mitigation? Well, risk mitigation is like looking at that cliff that we talked about earlier and with the right equipment and safety gear, choosing to descend it ever so carefully. Indeed, in this situation, you're aware of the risk, yet you decide to engage with it in a measured and calculated way. Indeed, risk mitigation enables you to reduce the severity of a potential loss without removing the risk entirely. That's because in this situation, what you're doing is accepting that the risk is there, but you're taking steps to lessen its impact on your overall financial well-being. And so how do you do this? Well, this may mean taking out insurance or establishing contingency plans or allocating resources strategically to reduce specific risks. And what does this look like? Well, from an investment perspective, risk mitigation might mean strategically spreading your investments across different asset classes like stocks, bonds, real estate, and other asset classes to diversify your investment portfolio. And this approach can help you reduce your vulnerability to a single stock concentration and minimize potential losses when markets head south without necessarily compromising on potential gains. Another way to mitigate risk is to consider hedging strategies for your investments that further allow you to protect your investment holdings as you work your way towards diversification. And for you side hustlers or business owners out there, if you do decide to work with otherwise risky clients, you should consider insurance policies to help defray potential financial costs associated associated with these sorts of engagements. More specifically, in situations like these, what we're talking about is professional liability insurance, also known as errors and omissions, or general liability insurance, and in some cases, specific coverages like malpractice insurance for healthcare providers or legal professionals. And why would you want this kind of insurance? Well, let's imagine for a moment that one of your clients claims that an error in your service caused them financial loss and decides to sue you. Now, in this case, your professional liability insurance would cover your legal defense costs, as well as any damages or settlements that you're otherwise required to pay up to the policy limits. And how does this help when you're working with high-risk clients? Well, high-risk clients often have more at stake, they're more demanding, and more likely to resort to legal action if something goes wrong. When it comes down to it, that's what makes them a liability risk. So if you're a freelance software developer working on a significant project for a high-profile client, and there's a delivery delay or a bug in the final product that causes the client to lose revenue, they could sue you to make up for the financial losses. So then in this situation, having professional liability insurance is crucial in protecting you from the potential massive costs of a lawsuit. In a similar way, if you're a consultant giving advice to your clients and one of them claims that following your advice led to a business loss, then professional liability insurance in some cases could step in to cover the costs associated with defending against such a claim and any resulting judgment or settlement. Either way, by having professional insurance, what you're doing is creating a safety net around your business. And this gives you the confidence you need to take on high-risk clients, knowing that if something goes wrong, you have some sort of financial protection in place. Now, with all that said, it's crucial to note that you need to understand your coverages and your limits and exclusions of your insurance policy to ensure that it aligns with your business needs and your risk profile. So then, if you haven't done so already, be sure to check out our recent discussion on buying insurance like a pro, which can give you some tips and pointers on how to evaluate coverages, limits, and exclusions. Now, when it comes down to it, mastering risk is the key to sustaining the wealth you've accumulated along your journey to financial independence. To be sure whether risk evokes thoughts of danger or opportunity for you, approaching risk with care and thoughtfulness can nevertheless unlock a world of opportunities for you. And like a skilled surfer riding a powerful wave, navigating risk skillfully can propel you and your life forward, allowing you to reach new heights you never thought possible. But with that said, underestimating its strength and losing your balance can lead to being overwhelmed and financially humbled in an instant. That's why to become the master of your financial independence journey, it's crucial to know which risks to avoid. Remember, risk avoidance isn't about dodging all risky financial decisions, but rather it's about making informed choices that limit risk exposure to unnecessary and potentially catastrophic risks. It could mean sidestepping certain investment vehicles known for higher volatility, avoiding excessive leverage, and for you entrepreneurs out there, being selective with clients who pose considerable risks to your business. At the same time, you'll want to take into consideration risk prevention, which, just like navigating a cliff's edge, involves putting barriers in place and adjusting your strategy to avoid being too close to the edge. This might mean frequently reviewing and rebalancing your investment portfolio based on market trends and conditions. It could also mean establishing clear contractual agreements with your clients and utilizing risk prevention measures to safeguard your business and prevent adverse events from materializing. And finally, there will be inevitable risks that just can't be avoided, and this is where a solid risk mitigation strategy comes into play. Remember, risk mitigation involves accepting the presence of risks while taking measured steps to reduce its severity. And from an investment perspective, these strategies include diversifying your investment portfolio and employing hedging strategies. And from a business perspective, professional liability insurance can protect you and your business against claims and financial repercussions from errors and omissions when working with risky clients. Either way, risk doesn't have to be something that keeps you up at night if you know when to avoid, prevent, or mitigate them in the first place. Indeed, the process of mastering the risks in your life allows you to take one step closer to becoming the master of your own financial independence journey. Well, that's it for now. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the FI Mastery podcast. To learn more about our research, visit us at fimastery.com or email your questions to questions@franklinmadisonadvisors.com. Until next time, I'm Peter Donisanu, wishing you and yours abundant health and prosperity.
FI Mastery Podcast is brought to you by Franklin Madison Advisors, Inc. Franklin Madison Advisors is a registered investment advisor firm with its registration and principal place of business in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Registration of an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. This commentary and forecasts are limited to the dissemination of general information pertaining to Franklin Madison Advisors' investment advisory services and general economic and market conditions and are subject to change without notice. The information shared today is not intended to be personal, legal, investment, or tax advice, or a solicitation to buy or sell any security or engage in a particular investment strategy. For additional information about Franklin Madison Advisors, including fees and services, please contact Franklin Madison Advisors or refer to the investment advisor public disclosures.